Oh, look, it's that time again. Yes, it's Corbyn O'clock. Yes, it's that time where all the Corbyn supporters and the people who will continue to cry about what could have been under Jeremy Corbyn for like the next decade or two will continue to cry about how wonderful he was, are once again crawling out of the woodwork. Now, why are they coming out of the woodwork yet again? Well, you might know a little, a Labour MP by the name of Margaret Hudge. Now, of course, I am going to say this up front. Margaret Hudge is not, shall we say, my favourite Labour MP of all time. I think she's got a lot of baggage, that's for sure, and she's by no means the best, shall we say, when it comes to Labour MPs. But of course, they've all come out of the woodwork because of what she recently said on the News Agents podcast. Now, what did she say that's causing them to once again crawl out of the woodwork? Well, one of the reasons they are doing this is because she came out and she said, look, in 2019, if Jeremy Corbyn had become Prime Minister, I would have done everything I could have to stop him from being Prime Minister, whether that would have been voting against budget or whatever else. Now, instantly, all the Corbynistas have come out and said, ha, finally, this is proof about what we've been talking about. This massive conspiracy that was aimed to stop Jeremy Corbyn winning in 2019 has finally been outed. There is Margaret Hudge saying that, of course, if Jeremy Corbyn had won in 2019, of course, he didn't win in 2019, that if he had won in 2019, she would have done by herself. She doesn't say there would have been anyone else joining in this, but she just said, I would have done everything I could to stop him. And this, of course, has been taken by the rabid, people who just cannot let go of Corbyn. And as I said many times, you've got to move on, guys. There's new battles to fight. You can't keep on fighting these same battles again and again. It just drags us back into pointless conversations that basically go nowhere because I will say this now, Corbyn was not a good leader of the Labour Party. And I will go into this at length. And I have said many times, I am happy to discuss this with anyone who might want to have a talk with me on this. Like I say, I will go on a show, I will go on a podcast, you can come on here, we'll do something. But I am more than happy to have that conversation with people. So, before we go talking more about this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, there is the link down below for my Patreon page. There's the one-off station link called Buy Me Coffee if you want to buy me coffee. There's the YouTube thank you button. And of course, there is the Pony Club as well. So let's crack on into this. So 2019, as we have explained numerous times, the manifesto that Corbyn put forward was an absolute mess. Doesn't matter that a lot of the policies in there I agreed with. I agreed with a lot of the policies. The big problem was that manifesto was such a mess, and Corbyn could not explain to the general public why they should vote for Labour and his manifesto because it was just such a god-awful mess. Perfect example that I always cite, free broadband. Now, this became such a joke of a policy and has become such a joke of a policy that even though this would be a really good policy, getting a government-funded infrastructure to build broadband and to make sure that everyone has access to broadband, because it can be sold as an educational tool, just like they do in South Korea, where it adds billions to their economy every year because it is a public funded access to broadband because it is seen as an educational tool and everyone has access to it. There are obviously, private things they can do as well in the background as well if they want to, but there is open public access to a broadband network that the government funds and puts funds into to help develop. And as we said, this adds billions to the economy. It is a perfect example to show how this could work. The problem becomes the fact that this seemed like such a tagged on policy that it became an absolute joke of the entire campaign and has become such a joke still to this day. People who like me who think, yes, that would be a really good idea, something, we could see, especially in the light, of course, coming out of the pandemic, where we saw how certainly a reliance on being having access to the internet was to many people during that time was and continues to be. It would have been a good policy. But Corbyn sold it poorly. And he sold it poorly, just like he sold the rest of the manifesto. MPs were not briefed on what was even going into the manifesto. So when it came down to doing door knocking, you had MPs on the doorstep going, I don't even know what's in the manifesto because no one's briefed me on it. I'm reading it for the first time, so I don't even know how to sell it to the voting public on the doorstep. You then had something that a lot of people, and of course these Corbynistas, refused to admit, that after the 2017 general election, Corbyn's popularity started to tank. Massively so. You had people up of the central Labour parties up in here, up in the Red Wall, trying to sound the alarm of the impending danger that they suspected was coming, and they were proved right. But of course, Momentum and Corbyn ignored these warnings, refused to change track or anything like that. And what happened? We lost the Red Wall in a significant way. The other fact was Brexit. Corbyn is one of the big reasons why we did not have a second referendum on the EU. Like it or not, a lot of the Labour Party that has been shown time and time again is incredibly pro-EU. Corbyn messed that up. And instead of forcing Boris Johnson into a negotiating position where we could have had a lot softer Brexit, instead, Corbyn fell for the trap and went for a general election, which was more about Brexit, and he did not run on it because his Brexit stance, and again, because the manifesto was such a mess, he didn't even acknowledge that that was going to be a major part of the 2019 general election. There are a multitude of reasons why Jeremy Corbyn failed, and it has nothing to do with this conspiracy that apparently Margaret Hudge was a part of this evil secret cabal that was just out to get Corbyn. The reality is that Corbyn was a bad leader of the Labour Party. Now, I've said before, a lot of his domestic policy, I think, was very good. But when it came to foreign policy, he was awful. Another example, take Ukraine. Let's say Jeremy Corbyn wins in 2019. And of course, Russia now invades Ukraine. Corbyn, as we know full well, as he has been on constantly, would have not have given Ukraine lethal aid, meaning that Ukraine does not get any armored fighting personnel vehicles, does not get any artillery shells, does not even get Storm Shadow missiles, which we have seen Ukrainians put to really good effect during this war. They get none of that. That does not make us look good on the world stage. Instead, you would have Corbyn saying, oh, we just need to negotiate. Well, as I keep on saying to these people, what exactly does that negotiations look like? What exactly are you going to give away to Russia? And how are you going to make sure that Russia does not do this type of stuff again? These are the questions that people like Jeremy Corbyn continuously seem to not be able to answer. I will say it and I will say it again. There are numerous reasons why Corbyn lost in 2019. And the big part of it was he was just not as good a leader as people make him out to be. That is the truth. And that's the reality. And there's just people who still cannot accept that reality. You need to move on, guys. You need to move on because there are new battles coming down the pipe to fight, and you are nowhere near that battlefield. You're still on down, 12 foot, 12, I don't know. You're still, half a mile down the road, trying to argue the fact that, maybe you overpaid too much for a pint, not realizing that you're in central London, and that's just the price of a pint that you have to pay. Sorry, guys, you need to accept that. Time to move on because there are new battles to fight. There are, as we keep on saying, going to be a very, very progressive majority in the next parliament. And there is a lot of stuff that we can get done. The Tory party are going to be absolutely annihilated. And if we have this progressive majority that can push for progressive things, then this means we can actually get stuff done and we'll be empowered to be able to do it. Because another question people need to answer me. If Jeremy Corbyn was so good, bear in mind he was never in power, what did Jeremy Corbyn actually accomplish? How did he change the UK for the better by being not in power and being constantly in opposition? He didn't really achieve a lot. It's time to move on, guys. But unfortunately, as I keep on saying, there are just people out there who will be on this for the rest of their lives, unfortunately, saying how wonderful it would have been if Jeremy Corbyn would have won. Well, he didn't, he lost. Time to move on and fight new battles. Don't keep on fighting this same ridiculous fight again and again and again. And I will say this now, people need to move on. And it's not just British people in the UK that need to, move on from this. It's YouTubers as well, particularly Vosh. I've even emailed Vosh. I would love to talk to Vosh about what happened in 2019 and why Corbyn really failed. I would love to have that conversation with him. But he doesn't seem to want to have that conversation, even though he's had that conversation by himself. He's never really talked to someone from the UK about that. I think that does a bit of disservice, but I would love to have that conversation with him. I don't think he's interested in having that conversation. Fair enough, but you know what? The offer's there if he ever wants to have it. I understand if he doesn't want to have it with me, but at least you could have it, maybe with someone else in this regard. But as always, thank you very much, of course, for everyone for watching today. Like I say, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there is a link to my Patreon page, etc. All that down below. So, as always, until next time, we'll see you all very soon.